Good evening, and welcome to the first meeting of 2015. Welcome to Downers Grove Village Hall. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There are copies of our agenda and information on both sides of the room tonight if you would like to follow along with us. We'll start with item number 2 on our agenda, which is a roll call. April, could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Commissioner Jose?
Here.
Commissioner Olson?
Here.
Commissioner Rankin? Here. Commissioner Barnett?
Here.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Here.
Commissioner Durkin?
Here.
Mayor Tully?
Thank you, April. We're already on to item number 3, which is minutes of council meetings. We have one item on our agenda tonight, council meeting minutes from December 16th, 2014. Are there any additions or corrections to the meeting minutes as presented? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve those meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Call for a vote.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin? Aye. Commissioner Neustadt?
Aye. And just like that, we're on to item number 4. Item number 4 is for public comment. This is a section of our meeting where residents and visitors can comment on non-agenda items. So if there's anyone in our audience tonight that has something that is not on our agenda that they'd like to discuss, please come up. I'd like to have your name and address, and we do limit our comments to around 5 minutes per commentator. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Good evening, commissioners, members of the public. My name is Tim Werner, and I reside at 6736 Osage Place in Downers Grove. And with me tonight is Tim Harms of 6831 Grand Avenue in Downers Grove. Together, we serve as co-chairs of the Downers Grove for Responsible Government Coalition. We are pleased to inform you that the DG for RG Coalition yesterday submitted petitions containing over 3,000 signatures from Downers Grove residents to place a referendum question on the April 7th ballot, asking whether residents support the proposed building of a new Downers Grove Village Hall, police station, and fire station. It is our belief that even in a home rule community, there is a place for referendum to support the governmental decision-making process. As we presented this petition to the people of Downers Grove, they were overwhelmingly in favor of being involved in this important community decision through the referendum process. There is nothing more American than giving voters the right to express their opinion at the ballot box. We are also very thankful for the work of over 50 volunteers from across the community who collected signatures and have given the voters a voice by allowing them to express their opinion on this important issue. We look forward to continuing our involvement as the residents of Downers Grove prepare to vote in April on this important issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments of a general matter not appearing on tonight's agenda?
Good evening, Happy New Year. My name is Laurel Bowen, 829 Clyde Drive. My first item that I would like to discuss is I'd like to thank the Downers Grove Police Department, the County Police Department, the State Police, and the police across the United States for the service that they have chosen to serve and protect the citizens and to risk their lives doing so. I'd also like to ask, normally in the past we've had an attendance sheet that has been circulated when we've had village council meetings, and that has seemed to have stopped. So we never know, there's no public record of who attends the council meetings any longer, and I just wonder if someone could explain why that has stopped. Can I get a response to that?
We'll get back to you on that, Ms. Bowen.
You'll get back to me?
Sure.
No one here can explain why we have no attendance sheet at the council meetings? Okay.
Excuse me, and so didn't the rules change that people didn't have to state their address and declare who they are when they speak at the podium? So I would imagine it might have something to do with that, because they believe
I'm
that...
having a hard time hearing people at the council when they don't speak into the microphone.
There was a decision, an AG's decision regarding not having to disclose your address at the podium. However, the process of not passing around a sheet it hasn't happened in several years now. It's been at least 4 or 5 years.
At the point where the workshop meetings were no longer being conducted, that they're all council meetings. The attendance sheet was always circulated at a workshop meeting, not at a council meeting. That's when it changed.
I see. Well, I think it would still be a good idea to send it around. People can choose not to sign it if they'd like not to have their name on there. I find it really curious. I got the Hometown Times in the mailbox last week, and we get this every month, I think. And the main article that the village seemed to think was the main news for the residents to realize was that we're getting new water meters. And I wonder why, when you are proposing to relocate our village hall, our police station, and our fire department at a potential enormous capital expense, with, you chose not to put a referendum on the ballot when David Olson made the motion. I find it really interesting that not a word is mentioned in this newsletter that item is up for consideration, when we never knew when that could come to vote. I just don't understand why that item was not included, but you chose to put all these awards that Downers Grove receives in there. Just a point of consideration in the future. Maybe you might want to reconsider how you prioritize your news that goes out to the public.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Bowen. And Happy New Year to you as well.
I mentioned that before you arrived.
Appreciate that. Happy New Year to Metro, too.
Happy New Year.
New year, new winter, same delays. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? Good evening, Dr. Goodman.
Happy New Year
Happy New Year to you as well.
to all. And I had in mind a little bit of follow-up on things that have been happening in 2014 and are going to continue through 2015. I was pleased today to talk with the Park District Administrator, Bill McAdam, and learn from him that the village manager is working on establishing suitable dates for meetings of principals, and that he and Mr. McAdam are working to find the appropriate the Forest Preserve District staff now. There's been quite a change over there. So that's good progress, and as you probably are well aware, there is a good deal of information, and we want to thank the manager for providing us with the information about trees along Maple Avenue that is posted now on the Pierce Downers Heritage Alliance website, and we've been having meetings about moving the Edwards House down Maple. So that's another important carry-through from last year. But the points that I'm mainly interested in now are the comments that were made after the vote on the 16th of December by several of the commissioners about not having the proper tools to do what citizens were asking, that you felt compelled to make the decision you did, even though you understood that it wasn't clearly not what your constituents were asking for. So I just wanted to emphasize that carrying through on that aspect of the decision is also very important. There are a lot of things that fall out of the decision you made on the 16th, and I wanted to make sure that we didn't lose track of this item of making the changes in your regulations and maybe even your ordinances that are needed in order to learn from and not repeat the experience we had. I talked today with Joe Abel, the expert witness I brought, and he's promised to send me information about work he did for Elmhurst on a similar problem of residential mixed-use development there, with which he thinks Elmhurst is very well satisfied with the results. His comment in this case was that now that you have established this precedent of purely residential use in the downtown business district, you may want to look at having an A and a B area in the downtown district. A might be the one that was only available for commercial or at least mixed use with commercial on the ground floor, and B would be one that could perhaps have purely residential. But he really is quite concerned that you need to look at your regulations as well as give more precedent to the comprehensive plan which you approved now. But I wanted to go on from these issues. It's just a multitude of things that have to be done as a result of what decision was made on the 16th. I wanted to remind you that we've been working on things like this in the community since our last near-death experience with a historic home on Maple in 2004. At that time, this petition that I've now put into display was circulated in the community. And in July of 2004, we presented 510 signatures of this petition that says, "We, the undersigned, hereby petition the village and the Park District as follows. Please secure our community maintains distinctive neighborhoods, including Maple Avenue with its characteristic collection of 19th and early 20th century residences by taking the following steps." And so those steps, some of them are still relevant, and others you've worked on, tightening the controls on demolition permits. You've done that. Well, at least you've made provisions for better management of demolition. And similarly, you've made progress on many of these things. I wanted to point out that we had 510 people who had signed it in July. By October, when we stopped, October of 2004, when we stopped circulating it, we had 1,885 people who had signed, 1,885. So it is a matter of continuing interest in our community, and I'm hoping that you won't drop the ball this time, but keep advancing it toward our goal line, which is to protect neighborhoods in Downers Grove. The second slide, if I could see it. Thanks. This is a meeting that the Village of Downers Grove organized in September of 2004. Many of you probably came to that meeting over at the South High School, where we brainstormed about how we could control and guide development in residential neighborhoods. It's a little different than the issue we have right now of guiding development in downtown business and downtown transition areas, but still, it's something that's unfinished business, and I'm hoping with the experience we've had will receive attention again. I have the results of that. I'm sure they're available in the village archives too, if you wanted to look at the more detail. At the same time, the next slide, if you could see it, the Downers Grove Historical Society did a survey about community attitudes related to historic preservation. And this is still very timely. I think you would be very interested to look at that again. I'm sure that also is available in the village archives. If it isn't, I can provide a copy, and they may still be available from the Historical Society for $3.50 each. Maybe the price has gone up over the last 10 years, but at any rate, these are very important resources, and we've got to keep working on this. We've got a historic preservation ordinance. It didn't provide much guidance in the case of the proposed development at 936, 942 Maple, but it was a very definite step forward from where we were in 2004. I'm just trying to remind you that this is a serious matter. It's going to take a substantial amount of staff and commissioner resources to come up with a solution that can make it better in our community in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Goodman, and this was something I was going to bring up when we got to new business, because that's where it was raised last year. But perhaps as long as you touched upon it, we can have a quick update of what we think the timing might be when the council will see some more information about the item that I mentioned under new business at the last meeting of 2014, and I think everyone pretty much joined in on that, which was looking at an issue that the number of us had mentioned regarding the zoning, comprehensive plan, uses, and perhaps design requirements that were raised in the comments that were made in the discussion of the Maple Avenue condominium projects. I think where we left it was that we were going to get information from staff, because there were a number of different points of interest, points of concern, and points of information that needed to be brought forward. And I don't think we set a date when we were going to consider that, but since it's come up and reasonable minds might inquire as to when we might be beginning that journey, I was wondering if perhaps we can get an update in terms of timing.
January 20th. We'll start
January 20th, we'll start the conversation, so you can set your watches by that. Other questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to matters of a general nature, items not appearing on tonight's agenda? And just before you speak, Ms. Bowen, I just want to make sure out of courtesy to any others here who might want to speak who haven't already spoken. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Seeing no one rushing the podium, Ms. Bowen, please.
Laurel Bowen, 829 Clyde Drive. I called the Public Works Director, Nan Newland, on Friday last week to express concerns with the proposed project in Clyde Estates, and she informed me that the issue would be presented tonight on the manager's report. It's not listed on the manager's report, and I called the Village Hall today, and they informed me it was not on the agenda tonight. So I will take this opportunity to make my comments based on the issue in Clyde Estates in our neighborhood. About 10 years ago, when Mr. Ginex was our village manager,
It's not on the agenda tonight, but we are going to be.
It is, actually, we do have a presentation that we're ready to give at any time. It's going to show up on our manager's report as our plan. But
and why isn't it on the agenda?
it was a late addition to the agenda.
A late addition, even though Mrs. Newland told me on Friday that it would be on the
Ms.
meeting
Bowen,
tonight.
Ms. Bowen, I think the more important thing is we're going to have a presentation on it tonight.
Well,
Which is something that you and I had talked about would be very helpful to the neighborhood, so we made sure that we're going to have a presentation on tonight. So we're going to, and that won't be the first time that we'll be able to talk about it.
So I can't talk about it now?
I didn't say that.
Okay.
If you have something, you were in the middle of it, I didn't want to cut you off, please proceed. I just wanted to let
Thank
you
you.
know, because it might help frame your comments now.
Thank
that
you.
We'll be talking about it later.
Well, I just don't understand why there's a communication issue there with the agenda items. 10 years ago, it was probably, I circulated a petition in Clyde Estates, and 100 people signed it. They did not want sidewalks. I submitted that petition in person to the Village Hall when Mr. Ginex was village manager, and I asked for that copy of the petition, and it's no longer available here. So there's no copy kept of petitions that citizens circulate and submit to the village hall. They're just arbitrarily thrown away or destroyed or lost.
Couldn't tell you sitting here right now what our records retention policy is with respect to documents, but most organizations have a records retention policy that specifies a life cycle for different types of documents. I don't know sitting here what the life cycle is for something that was submitted back then.
I understand.
It would be kept for the period of time in which it's supposed to be kept.
Okay, well, I think that it's expressed to me that the village staff is concerned with what the residents think, and we were told we would have multiple meetings for this sidewalk issue and the redevelopment of Clyde Estates. Mr. Goodman just mentioned the neighborhood character petition that we got 1,500 signatures on. I constantly hear from the village about how we have very distinct neighborhoods that is a quality that we brag about in Downers Grove, which I agree with, until someone comes along in the village and decides that they want to make Clyde Estates like other neighborhoods and change the integrity of our country lane and tree-lined streets, which is why we moved to Clyde Estates. So the multiple meetings, it was explained that we would have with the village staff turned out to be 2. The first meeting was in August. A half a dozen or so residents were left off the invitation list. 7 or 8 people came to that meeting. It was at 6:30 at Public Works. I think you understand. I realize you were a little late to the meeting tonight, and it was at 7. Last night, I got home from work at 8. So it's difficult for people to get to a meeting at dinner time and during rush hour. And then the second meeting was in November, which was kind of holiday time. That was well attended because everybody was invited to that meeting. And what I find interesting is that the neighbors weren't invited to a meeting until after the RFP was distributed and responded to and a consultant was determined for the project. So you decided what you wanted and what you wanted a consultant to do before you even spoke to the residents in the neighborhood. And then now we don't even have a meeting on a Saturday with residents. The next meeting we're told that will happen with the neighbors is after the bids come back. So that's pretty much after everything's been determined. So we don't have a say in the matter, it doesn't sound like.
Well, let me just stop
I'll
you
read
there.
you.
If I can just stop you there for a moment, because I appreciate you had previously raised this point. In fact, you'd raised, no one's ever had trouble hearing me. You had previously raised this point with me, and it's one of the reasons why we're having the presentation tonight, because you and some other folks in that neighborhood had indicated that the prior meetings were helpful, but they wanted to have additional opportunities for discussion about the proposal, what's planned for the neighborhood, before even any bids go out or come back. And then there will be another meeting to look at the information that's the result of that process, again, before any actual work is done. So it will be at least 4 meetings that will take place. And I want to actually applaud and thank you for raising this issue, because we're having the presentation tonight largely because of the request that you made and some of your neighbors. So I just want to make sure everybody here understands.
Well, the neighbors weren't made aware of this presentation
It's largely
tonight.
because of your comments that we're here tonight, having the presentation later, and so you and others should be thanked for that.
Well, I find that interesting because none of us knew about this meeting, and it just happened that I called the Public Works Director on Friday, and she mentioned it to me and gave me permission to come tonight. So I find it really interesting.
have permission.
No one in the neighborhood knows about the meeting tonight except when I was told, and then when I called today and was told it was not on the agenda.
The main purpose for the presentation tonight is actually so that the concerns that have been raised by yourself, and you're not alone. We've received, and my colleagues have received emails and comments from others in Clyde Estates with different issues that they have. Some we've been dealing with up until now. And this is a presentation, a public presentation, so obviously it will be recorded, it will be broadcast, it will be available for replay, there will be written minutes available for anyone who wants to see them. That gives the opportunity for the council to see the proposal for Clyde Estates laid out. We have in our minds what the different comments and concerns are. So I make note of the issues that you raised with me. I know you've raised issues with some of my other colleagues. There are neighbors of yours that have raised issues with us. We're going to have a conversation tonight. It'll all be available for anyone to see. We will receive additional input. Staff will receive additional input. It's not a static environment. It's a dynamic environment, so it's opportunities present themselves, provide information. We'll go forward. So if your point is that everyone's mind is made up and it's fixed in stone, I just wanted to let you know that's not at all true.
Well, when I spoke to Mrs. Newland on Friday, it was explained to me that there weren't going to be any more meetings, and that I spoke to one of the neighbors that was at the first meeting, and she was kind of stunned when she found out that she couldn't find out what the record was from the 2 meetings. I asked for those 2 neighborhood meetings to be recorded, and they were not
Well, typically
recorded.
neighborhood meetings are not recorded.
And no council member came, and the Public Works Director was not at those meetings. Only 2 deputy directors were at the meeting, and the consultant.
And again, thanks to, among your efforts and others, we're having the entire village council will be here tonight with it. The Public Works Director is in the audience. We have the entire village staff here. So again, thank you. You've raised it to a level of the attention it deserves. You should be applauded, and your neighbors should thank you.
I'm not asking for applause. I'm asking for you to realize that the integrity of our neighborhood is very important to us. We moved to Clyde Estates for the same reason that you moved to where you live, and the rest of you moved to where you live, because you want to live in that neighborhood. And when someone from the village that doesn't live there, and a lot of them don't live in Downers Grove, they come through and they hire a consultant that comes through who doesn't live in Downers Grove, and they come through and they decide how to change Clyde Estates. And they don't give us any opportunity. They just tell us, we've been without sidewalks for 10 years, and we're getting them just like everybody else is. That's what your Deputy Director of Public Works told us at both the first and the second meetings that we had.
Well, of course, you are aware of the multi-decade plan that's been in place since TCD2 to put a sidewalk in at least one side of every street in Downers Grove. But that has been a long-standing, I think I'm right when I say multi-decade public plan that was, found its origins in community meetings.
Well, we all know that that can be changed.
Absolutely. But I'm just simply saying, it's common knowledge that that's been a long-standing policy of this village.
Well, just like in other neighborhoods in this town where you've made differences in traffic patterns and you've closed off streets because those neighbors have come to you and asked for that, and you've responded to them.
Sure.
And I appreciate you responding to us with that same consideration.
Of course.
Especially with the amount of this capital project is.
Of course, and just again, for those who may not be familiar with the project, there's a number, and I know you are, but others who may not be, there are a number of other facets to the project, not just sidewalks, but it's also traffic issues as well as stormwater. And so there's a number of different aspects that go into it. The idea is to enhance the neighborhood in a way that benefits the neighborhood.
Well, I know that there's been
Yeah.
traffic studies done in other areas of town. I've seen them for myself. And I'd like to know when Doran Farah has done a traffic study in our neighborhood to justify the extreme changes that you have proposed to us.
I suspect we may be hearing more about that later tonight. Not Mr. Farrer in particular, but traffic issues in Clyde Estates.
A traffic study?
The traffic issues.
We know the traffic issues. I'd just like to know if there was a study done, because we have that ability in the village. Public Works has traffic study capabilities.
And as I said, we may hear more about that later tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and again, appreciate you being here for the discussion. Other questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to matters of a general nature? Good evening.
Hi.
Happy New Year.
Same to you. I'm Bea Bennett, 913 Clyde Drive. Lori brought up this topic, and before I sit through another presentation, I would like a chance to talk, because presentations are rehearsed and they're one-sided. Anyway, on Clyde Estates, we went to this meeting at the Public Works Building, and they said it was for public input. And I noticed there was no secretary there. No one was recording the comments made by the residents. As Lori pointed out, it started at 6:30, and it was a nasty night, really cold and windy. And anyway, if they wanted public comments and they valued them, you would have had some kind of recording. They were talking about snow removal. Without curbs, how are snowplows going to see during the night when they go out there to clean the drives? They were talking about removing trees that are 60 years old. I mean, trees absorb a lot of storm water. And then they talked about putting in ditches. Here is a progressive town. They want sidewalks on every single street, but they're going to put in a ditch? A ditch belongs in farmland. It doesn't belong in Downers Grove. I asked why? Why can't we have sidewalks, curbs, drains in the street? No, we can't. And I said, well, how much water? They're going to remove 2 streets and put them right in front of my house. That's 3 streets of traffic that are going to be routed past my house. And not only are they going to put it past my house, which I find incredible, they're going to give me 24 feet, 1 inch more of an easement for me to shovel with a ditch. And then I get to mow it in the summer. And I don't like mowing ditches. I think ditches are hard to go with a lawnmower. Plus, I get to weed it. They're going to come in with this natural plantings. The first year, they'll come out and water it. But the next year, every homeowner gets to weed. I've got a 100-foot lot across the front. That's a lot of weeding. It's a lot of shoveling. And when I added 24 feet new property in front, plus the existing, I have a 33-foot easement across the front. So you do the math, how much of that land is the town going to take care of, and how much is it going to pay me to take care of that land? Not only that, if they do this, and I say if because I'm hoping all of you can put yourself in my position. I like my land just the way it is. It's big. I don't have a problem with stormwater. I think that's a very expensive proposition to shift water from a high-standing hill. Clyde Drive is on one of the highest points in Downers Grove. 2 blocks north is 59th Street. All the water, that is a much lower end. In fact, if anybody knows Eberson's Farm, at the that's the sledding hill, and it goes downhill for sled riders. Great for the kids. It's great for stormwater. All the water in Clyde Drive, or Clyde Estates, goes downhill. So they're going to put a retention pond up at the top of the hill. And where is that water going to go? Like all water, downhill. So I asked, how deep is this retention pond going to be? It's going to be 12 inches. 12 inches! 12 inches is that much. They're going to remove healthy 60-year-old trees, reroute streets for 12 inches of retention water. Do you know what that looks like to me? It looks like a contractor who is trying to fatten his fees. It doesn't make sense. I would not spend money that way, and I hope you won't either, because I hope you're smarter than that. Okay, that is my point. You're going to put ditches in a really nice neighborhood. In fact, one of the Public Works, okay. Public Works men, he said when he was looking for a home, he thought Clyde Estates was one of the nicest neighborhoods, and he wanted to live there. But there were no homes for sale. Now, when that area was put in, it wasn't even incorporated. It was outside the district. Eventually, the homeowners association deeded the streets to the village because we wanted to get natural gas in. So I would like to see the deed that must be recorded somewhere that you got control of our streets. Not only did you get control of our streets, but the parkways are in there, and there are 3 parkways. And if the deeds include the parkways, I'd like to see that, because all the people in our neighborhoods maintain that. We mow the grass out there, we take care of those parkways, and if the town owns them, then maybe we better see that paper again. Do you know where the paper is, the deed?
No, I don't.
Well, perhaps somebody could look it up,
I'm
because
sure,
I would like to
I'm
know.
sure as I filed the recorder's office.
Okay. And in closing, I'd just like to say, if I'm going to have another 24 feet of easement on top of the easement already in front of my house, am I going to have to pay for the driveway extension? I mean, that's 24 plus 33, that's 57 feet of cement that belongs to the city that I need to pass to get into my driveway? Anyway, think about what you're doing is very serious, and I think the contractor is padding the job. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. We have all your comments in mind for when we discuss the proposal later today. Other questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to general matters?
I'm out of order, but I want to speak about Clyde, but I understand you want us to speak about 11:30 when you're or we speak now.
First of all, and ma'am, no one could hear you because you were in the audience, but I think that for everyone at home listening, the question was, do we want to entertain comments about Clyde Estates now?
I want to make comments about Clyde Estates, but I also want to make comments, I'm the first timer here, and I don't hear anyone speaking because they're either not speaking into the mic, or if you're sitting in the audience, I couldn't hear what you're saying, or I couldn't hear what anyone's saying. First of all, I think the speaker should be so loud that everybody, including the person in the back there, can hear. That's one item. Now,
Excuse me, sir.
yes,
Welcome, and Happy New Year to you. Can I
Thank
just
you.
finish what I was saying a moment ago?
yes, I'm all good with Vicky.
Apparently, no one can hear me.
I'm a resident of Clyde Estates.
Sir, hold just one second. Just wait. I want to clarify because young lady over here asked a question.
Yes.
And I think both of us just give her the courtesy of answering her question before we
Yes.
go on. Would you join me with that? Thank you.
I agree.
We are going to have a presentation discussion about Clyde Estates later, but I'm not suggesting everyone must wait until then. If they would like to make comments about Clyde Estates now, please do so. Obviously, people have been doing that. You're welcome to do so. We have no intention of being here till 11:30 at night. Let me dissuade you of that notion right now, because otherwise the doors will be frozen shut if we're here that late. Anyone who would like to speak about Clyde Estates, you're welcome to do so now, but I would also welcome you, because of your passion and interest in the topic, to please stay for the presentation. Who knows, you might learn something. And then, obviously, we can entertain more comments and discussion then. But not suggesting anyone shouldn't feel free to speak about Clyde Estates now. Sir, welcome to Village Hall.
Thank you, thank you.
We should have a special star for first-timers to recognize you being here.
Well, I just pointed out
Happy
that
New Year.
one of the things you have to hear what's going on, otherwise it makes nothing.
I
The
agree.
volume
It's
should be
important
turned
for
up
folks
on all the
to
mics.
Listen, I understand.
The volume should be turned up on all the mics so that everybody can hear, so that people aren't sitting like this.
Right, understood.
That is
Actually, if
that's-
I could ask you to back off a little bit from the microphone, because your voice is distorted.
Well, I want to make sure someone hears me.
Yes, but it's more important that we listen.
I want more than the chairman to hear me. I want the other people out there to hear me.
Thank you, Norbert.
There's no reason why that man in the corner can't hear. He should be hearing it. But I'm really here.
Officer, can you hear? Officer can hear.
Wonderful. Glad. I'm glad he can hear.
Thank you.
I'm making enough
Please
noise so he
proceed.
can hear. My real purpose is to come here. I thought we were going to talk about Clyde Estates, the sidewalks, and the renovation of the roadway. There's no reason for sidewalks in our area. I don't see the purpose of it. It's just spending Downers Grove money for something that's not needed. The streets definitely need repair. Certain areas are clumsy the way they arranged it, to make a circular path and to have a runaround. I think the arrangement we have is presently is satisfactory. It's just that they should be updated and corrected and repaired and make in good condition. Other than that, I see no reason for sidewalks. There is definitely no reason for sidewalks in any of our... I'm impacted because there will be sidewalks in front of me on the east, and there'll be sidewalks on the west on the south of me. So I'm really affected in both ways. Now, I will have, whether there'll be a little patch in front that I'll have to get cut with lawnmower, another one. With this way, I hire someone to do the whole thing and it's done. If there's going to be a little patch in front, who does that belong to? The city, or does it belong to me? There you go. You got another problem. Should I cut the grass or shouldn't I?
Please cut the grass.
Yes, but you're imposing a job on me that I'm willing to do now, but with the sidewalk there, I may not be that, my people who I hire may not be willing to go across that sidewalk. But as I said,
I realize it presents
I
a
am
formidable
objecting to
barrier.
the sidewalks.
They might
That's
just
what
be
I'm
able to get past
objecting to. Please take that in consideration, and I believe majority of the people in Clyde Estates are against the sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank
Sir,
you,
could we
sir.
get your name for the record? I don't think we got his name.
Norbert, tell him your name. Tell him your name, please.
My name is Norbert Wisbicki. I live at 5922 Webster Place.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and welcome to Village Hall. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Thank you for
Bless you.
your kindness to my speaking from my chair. I'm Connie Butler. I live at 5925 Washington. It'll be 47 years this February. And Norbert lives the next street over, and I'd just like to speak to him. If you're familiar with Clyde area, it's just a little street, and a little street, and a little street. So I feel for him. I have sidewalk on my side of the street, so I've been the sidewalk person, okay? But I really question whether it's a sidewalk to nowhere where Norbert lives. So I really encourage you to reconsider that. This is, as I said, this is my first meeting, and I look forward to the presentation of learning about, all I have is the diagram. And I am in favor of the three-prong that you're talking about. You're talking about traffic, you're talking about flooding, and you're talking about sidewalks, okay? In the 47 years that we have lived there, we're two houses from 59th, and our boys were born there, and now our grandsons visit us there. It's scary to have the traffic come very fast from 59th onto Washington, and it's very scary to have the traffic come very fast down Washington into 59th crossing to go to the train. So I really do believe that there is some need for traffic decrease. However that's done is certainly a matter of whatever is the most advantageous. I'm be really very, the other thing is about flooding. I have been aware of the flooding increasing, not so much on my side of the street. I live on the east side. We've had probably in the 47 years, we've probably had our basement flood maybe 4 times, mostly due to electricity going out, the sump pumps going off, stopping. One time the sewer backed up, and another time we left leaves in our basement and it flooded. So that was one time our time. Our neighbors on the other side of, in that block from 59th to Webster, to Clyde, where it goes into Webster, are constantly being flooded. I see them do all kinds of manner of trying to keep their basement from being flooded. And I just feel for them. They've spent an enormous amount of money and ingenuity over the last number of years to try to deal with that. I have some personal reasons why the flooding has increased. I think when you build up more where it was a farmland, you just have less area for the water to go. And probably there's more scientific reasons for what's happening too, to why the flooding. But again, that's not me, that's for the consultants to say. The reason, the last thing, and I'll sit down, is my understanding here of the diagram, the sidewalk, is sort of like, what are sidewalks for? You know, I was like the others, I didn't want a sidewalk coming and chopping up my front yard. But I have been amazed at how many people come in that block from 59th, Washington, go around to the Y on that sidewalk. Old folks like me, people with pushing buggies, people use that sidewalk. So it's really interesting to me to see what's the sidewalk for? Okay, the sidewalk is to get somewhere safe, all right? And now I see it's crossing the street, you're crossing a street to another side, and then it looks like, and I may be all wrong, that one of the streets appears to be closed to traffic because of the retention or whatever. That I won't talk too much about because that's my speaking from ignorance. But that's what it looks like from the diagram that I have. So sidewalks are for safety, they're to go somewhere. They're not just to put in a sidewalk because somebody said, you know, I promise there'll be a sidewalk on every street in Downers Grove. That's silly. It's like a sidewalk to nowhere is not. It just doesn't make sense. But the other things, I commend you for attacking this issue. I, like B. Bennett, wonder about the curbs and the snow removal and the ditches. You know, my neighbors have ditches, and they try to do all kinds of creative ways to make that look halfway nice for a very nice house. So I think there's room for creativity, and I appreciate your addressing the issue. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you for being here, Ms. Butler. Other questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to items of a general nature? Thanks to everyone for being here on this chilly night in January to share those comments. We appreciate it. We'll move on then to item 5, council member reports. This is an opportunity for members of the village council to share with everyone else here items of interest or goings on in the community. Happy New Year, Commissioner Jose.
Thank you, Mayor. No report.
Thank you. Happy New Year, Commissioner Rankin.
I would just like to share an event that's happening. Literacy DuPage is a group that provides free literacy tutoring for adults in the western suburbs. And they are having an event in Downers Grove at Parker's on Saturday, January 31st. So if you would like more information, it's a wonderful group. Their website is www.literacydupage.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy New Year, Commissioner Durkin. Happy New Year, Commissioner Newstead.
Thank you, Mayor. This week, the Village of Downers Grove, along with Republic Services, will be collecting live Christmas trees at the curb. There'll be no charge for that. It's a free collection. But also, the Downers Grove Park District will be collecting Christmas trees, live Christmas trees for recycling from December 26th last year to January 12th of this year. The drop-off site will be at Hummer Park. So a couple options for you if you have a live Christmas tree. Right at your curb, or you can haul it over to Hummer Park for recycling. That's all I have tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Happy New Year, Commissioner Olson.
No report.
And Happy New Year, Commissioner Barnett.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Very quickly, I just want to let everyone know a couple things. Number one, remind everybody that the second annual District 99 Education Foundation Pizza Wars will be held this year on January 15th in the cafetorium at Downers Grove South High School. It will take place from 5:30 to 8 p.m. It's a terrific event. It was very well attended last year. I know a lot of us up here were there last year. I personally witnessed Commissioner Barnett eating his share of pizza at that event. A number of area pizzerias in Downers Grove and in Woodridge compete for the best pizza. It's all in the spirit of raising funds for the District 99 Education Foundation. So as they say, it's for the kids. Last year, Aurelio's took the crown. I know Woodridge has been practicing all year to try to take the crown back from Downers Grove. So if you're into pizza and a little friendly competition and would like to go to Downers Grove South at the cafetorium on January 15th, you can support the Education Foundation. I would encourage folks to do that. It certainly beats being outside, which leads me to my second point. all of you, all of us in Downers Grove and beyond need to be extra careful tomorrow. The weather was pretty nasty today, and it's supposed to be even worse tomorrow. We do have information that's available on the village website, and particularly in the county website, with respect to resources that are available, warming stations and whatnot, in case anyone finds themselves in a difficult situation in this particularly difficult and challenging weather. I know it's particularly tough for a lot of those who are out on the roads plowing the streets so that we can get by in our day-to-day business. The elements are pretty challenging this time of year, so everyone please be warm and stay safe. That's my council member report. We'll go to item 6, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to any of the items on the consent agenda? Any questions or comments from members of the village council with respect to any items on the consent agenda? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Neustadt?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, consent agenda passed unanimously. It brings us to item 7, the active agenda. We have no items on the active agenda tonight, so we'll go straight to item 8, which is our first reading or our workshop portion of our meeting, where we entertain items for discussion and deliberation, but no vote at this time. Action may be taken at a later point. There are several items on tonight's first reading or workshop agenda. Custom dictates that we ask village staff to introduce these items for presentation and discussion. So Happy New Year to you, Manager Fieldman.
Happy New Year, Mayor. We'll start with an ordinance that would approve a redevelopment agreement with Vequity LLC regarding the property known as the former Marathon gas station at Ogden and Saratoga. And here to present this item is the President of the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation, Michael Casa.
Good evening and Happy New Year, Mr. Casa.
Good evening, Mayor Tully and village commissioners. Michael Casa, President of the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation, 5159 Mokel in downtown Downers Grove.
And with you tonight also, Chairman Miller. Happy New Year to you as well from EDC.
Scott
Thank you for being here tonight.
I am pleased to present the proposed redevelopment agreement between the Village of Downers Grove and Vequity LLC Series 7 Downers Ogden LLC for 1201 Ogden Avenue, which is the property at the southeast corner of Ogden and Saratoga Avenues. Vequity Real Estate is the developer for this project. They are a well-respected firm that specializes not only in commercial real estate development, but in construction and property management services. Vequity is proposing to redevelop the existing closed gas station property. The project calls for a 5,900 square foot commercial building and surface parking. Vequity is actively marketing the site. Several national and regional tenants have expressed strong interest in the lease space. The redevelopment of the property, especially since it is located at a signalized intersection, is very important to the economic vitality of the Ogden Avenue corridor. The redevelopment of a closed gas station site will not only have a positive impact on that portion of Ogden Avenue, it will also make it easier for us to pursue other redevelopment projects in that corridor. The terms of the proposed redevelopment agreement are as follows. The developer shall build a 5,900 square foot commercial building in accordance with approved plans. The developer shall substantially complete the project by January 31st, 2017. The developer shall remediate existing environmental conditions and obtain a no further remediation or removal letter from the state of Illinois. The developer shall comply with all village ordinances and applicable laws and shall diligently pursue obtaining all required permits for the construction of the project. The village agrees to reimburse the developer for up to $225,000 for eligible costs associated with the environmental cleanup of the property. And the village shall not be required to make any payments unless Vequity has applied to other governmental agencies for grant or other reimbursements for the costs of the environmental remediation. Any grant funding then will reduce the total amount to be reimbursed by the village. The Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation has been marketing sites on Ogden Avenue for redevelopment for several years. The use of TIF funds for unique costs such as environmental remediation is an important tool that can be used to achieve that goal. The use of TIF funds for this project is consistent with the direction provided by the Village Council and the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation Executive Committee. The Downers Grove EDC strongly supports the proposed redevelopment agreement with Vequity. I am pleased tonight to introduce members of the Vequity team that are here. Chris Alakis, Principal, Max Odom, Chief Operating Officer, and Andy Cohen, who's responsible for acquisitions. They would be pleased to answer any questions that you may have. Before I close, let me thank the team at Vequity for making this important investment in our community. I also want to thank the village staff, including the legal department and the planning division, for their very good work on this project. And now I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Casa. Any questions from many members of the audience with respect to this item while Mr. Casa is here?
For the development team.
We have someone coming down. Good evening. Happy New Year.
Good evening, and Happy New Year to all of you. Bill Waldeck, 1409 Willard Place in Downers Grove. Not so much a question, but a comment. One of the requirements is that the developer apply for grants, which is an excellent idea, except grant writing is as much an art as it is a science. So I hate to assume, but I'm going to assume that staff, our village grant writer, will work closely with the developer to get get the grant money. So we just don't go through the motion of applying for a grant and having a count. The idea is to get the money and save the taxpayers money. So I'm going to hope that our grant writer will be very much involved in the process.
It actually also will be their environmental consultant that would be applying for those grants. So it's their consultant.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Waldeck. Other questions from the audience at this time? Questions from the Village Council? Commissioner Olson?
Well, I just want to state, thank the Economic Development Corporation, the developer, for their work on this project. I'm pleased to see that we're using TIF funds, I think, in a very appropriate manner for economic development, taking a site that is currently producing no sales tax revenue and moving it to something that will be producing revenue and be an asset to the community. And I think this is exactly what TIF funds are for promoting economic development along this corridor. So I'm pleased that we have this, the ability in this case to support this development. So I just wanted to thank the group and express my support for this proposal. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments from members of the Village Council? I'll just add my thanks to the representatives from Vequity who are here tonight. We, as always, very much appreciate and recognize that you had many choices, and we appreciate you choosing Downers Grove for this project and joining Mr. Casa and the EDC and welcoming you and thanking you for your investment in our community. We look forward to a successful project.
Could I ask Chris to come say a few words?
Absolutely. I didn't want to be presumptuous and assume, put you on the spot, but by all means, please. Good evening, Happy New Year.
Good evening, Happy New Year. Thanks for having us this evening. We appreciate the opportunity. My name is Chris Alakis. I'm a principal of Vequity. Want to thank you guys for having us this evening and welcoming us so graciously in the community. Michael's been great to work with, and we look forward to bringing a quality development to you guys. We do represent and work with a number of national retailers and restaurants in the Midwest, and have built 15 or so similar projects to this, and look forward to working with you guys.
Likewise. Thank you, Mr. Lakes. Thank you for being here as well. Very good.
Thank you, Mayor. The next item on our first reading agenda is consideration of an ordinance authorizing a special use in 2300 Wisconsin Avenue. Here to present background information on this item is our planning manager, Stan Popovich.
Happy New Year, Mayor.
Happy New Year, Mr. Popovich. Welcome.
Happy New Year to you as well. As Mr. Fieldman noted, it's a special use request for a personal vehicle repair and maintenance business at 2300 Wisconsin Avenue. 2300 Wisconsin Avenue is located here in the Ellsworth Industrial Park on the north side of Wisconsin Avenue, a little bit west of Belmont Avenue. As on the zoning map here that I flipped through pretty fast, it's zone M1, light manufacturing. Zoom in a little bit more, you can see the site here in the blue outline. When this aerial photo was taken, it was a vacant site. Subsequently, today, the property is more represented by 3 buildings here. The 3 buildings were approved in 2012, and construction took place in 13 and 14. Construction is now complete on the outside of the shell core of the buildings. The petitioner currently occupies Unit 301 here in the upper left-hand corner, which would be the northwest corner of the site. He's a research and development business for non-street legal vehicles, developing suspension parts, primarily for race vehicles, race cars and everything. So the petitioner currently is more in research development on the site, which is permitted in the M1 district. What he is proposing to do is offer installation, fabrication, and maintenance of suspension parts and installation on cars. And when we looked at the zoning ordinance, the new ordinance, how it's written, that falls underneath personal vehicle maintenance and repair. So that's how we classified it. I just want to clarify, too, that the petitioner is proposing to expand his space to a second unit, Unit 302. So we'd have 2 of the units in that 300 building. The petitioner does not offer any services to walk-in traffic. So nobody in the public can can drive up with their Kia and get an oil change or anything like this. This is specifically, people ship their cars to the site, and then the petitioner would install the suspension parts. He does a lot of testing, so he's developing suspension parts, puts them on race cars, ships them back out. Nobody really drives these cars on the streets, so they're either for race cars or other non-street legal cars in essence. But as the ordinance is written, it's a special use. So we believe it is consistent, and then here's the layout of the 2 spaces. The petitioner is using the 2 units, not going to connect them internally and keep them separate for their uses in that way. He would not store any cars on site. Any cars on site would come to him, be delivered, and then again, once the work was done, would be taken off site. He does have some trailers, but they're stored in an off-site facility, and we've already talked to him about the inability to store a trailer on this site just based on the parking requirements. We believe the plan is consistent, the proposal is consistent with comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan talks for Ellsworth Industrial Park to be research and development and to expand existing businesses, which with this would both classify that way. And so if there's any questions that the council may have for me, I'd be happy to answer those for you at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Popovich. Let's start and see if there are any questions from any members of the audience with respect to this requested special use. Questions from the audience? Questions from the village council? I'll just state what I think is probably obvious, but just in case someone's thinking of it. Since the cars that are being serviced are not street legal, they won't be test driven on the streets surrounding the industrial park?
That is correct, Mayor.
I figured that was stating the obvious. Hearing no further questions, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. And the final item on tonight's first reading agenda is consideration of an ordinance that would amend provisions of the village code concerning streets and sidewalks. And here to present this item is our Assistant Public Works Director, Andy Sikich.
Good evening and Happy New Year, Mr. Sikich. How are you?
Same to you, Mr. Mayor. Very well, thanks. I'll make this pretty brief. The purpose of this item is to update and simplify the permitting and bonding requirements for work in the public right-of-way. The ordinance that's before you basically deals with streets and sidewalks. There are a number of minor changes, but I'll kind of walk you through the highlights here on these slides. It's also in the handout for the packet. So Chapter 19, again, is streets and sidewalks. The updated requirements are for access to unimproved streets and alleys. There were some things in the ordinance that didn't match up with current standards. Some of the required widths and things were even wider than some of the alleys, the rights-of-way that we have in town. So we've cleaned up some of those types of things. The ordinance clarifies and simplifies requirements of when a sidewalk permit or a fee in lieu is required. It creates standards for the installation of mailboxes in the rights-of-way. It requires an agreement to accept liability for work performed in the right-of-way. This is for private contractors performing work in our right-of-way. Adds requirements for a 3-year cash bond for any street opening. This is to help prevent, when you see all those street cuts that new homes and contractors make in the street, if they fail after 2 years, we will have a remedy to go back and get these repaired without expending village funds. There's an increased insurance limit requirements, and it moves a lot of the fees and bonds out of the ordinance and into the administrative regulation, which gives us a better ability to update those to make sure we're covering our costs on an annual basis. It updates requirements for traffic and pedestrian control, again, for private contractors working in the right-of-way to help make sure that the work they're doing is safe for both traffic and for pedestrians. And it also clarifies some of our pavement restoration requirements, again, to bolster the methods that we can prevent failed street patches in the road. And that's really the nuts and bolts of it. There's some other minor things in the ordinance. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. And before taking questions from the audience or the council, I appreciate staff putting this on a first reading agenda. It came up originally several weeks ago, and by the time we reached it, it was pretty late in the day, and there were some inquiries that perhaps we ought to give it some due attention, and so I'm glad we're doing that. I'm certainly benefiting from it. I appreciate that. I'll start with any questions from the audience with respect to these proposed changes to the village code. Questions or comments from members of the village council? Commissioner Rankin?
In section 19.18, talking about the mailboxes, I've spoken with the manager quite a bit about this. There's all these new regulations, and I think it was in part due to people building these very elaborate mailboxes, and then they were solid brick, and when there was an issue, the village might be required to pay for it if a snowplow hit it. So I don't know if that's exactly true, but that's how I understood it. So by thinking about it, I think this is kind of hidden here, and maybe we don't require the people to get a permit to do this work to not unduly burden our citizens, but maybe on the part of our website where it says permits, and then there's generators, house renovations, decks, whatever. There's something that says mailboxes, and then it links to this so people know. Because they may go, I don't know if I need a permit, and if it's hidden back in this area, they're not going to know about these rules, and they're certainly just going to build something and then have to pay the consequences later.
Sure.
We'll be happy to do so.
Okay. That was all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments on this item from members of the council? Just one question I had, the cash bond requirement, the 3-year cash bond requirement for any street openings, that's obviously, I think, a wise move. I don't recall, since it's a cash bond, are those funds placed in an interest-bearing account or a non-interest-bearing account, or how is that handled, since it is a 3-year period?
I believe it's a non-interest-bearing account, but I will double-check with our finance team, non-interest-bearing.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, what ballpark estimate, what is the sort of the typical amount of a 3-year cash bond? What do we anticipate? Order of magnitude?
About $500.
Oh, thank you. No, that answers my question. That was the reason for the follow-up question.
Because then you got to get clapped.
Yes, that's why I asked it. The only other thing I just wanted, it's more of a statement than a question, and that is I recall when this matter was first before us, these changes that were being proposed were being made not only because they're good recommendations, but because they largely mirror what our practices have been in the field lately anyhow. Is that more or less correct?
Yeah, more or less. Some of them do. Some of them strengthen our ability to require contractors to come back and fix things.
Right.
And there are other changes that kind of clarify some of the language that makes it easier. People know what they need to do for permits and things like that.
Right, so more information up front, better communication of information, and then we have long heard about the issue of, well, someone doing work in the community and it all looks fine, they go away, we find out it's not fine, and then what are our abilities to reach out and get them back in order to make right what it is they should have in the first place. So I'm all for that. Very good, thank you.
That ends our first reading tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, terrific. That brings us to item number 9, the mayor's report. I have nothing additional at this point in time. So we'll go right to item 10, which is the manager's report, which was previewed earlier. We have a couple of items under the manager's report tonight, so I will turn it over to Mr. Fieldman once again.
I will start by inviting up our Public Works Director, Nan Newland, to provide some information about our Clyde Estates project.
Good evening, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. I'm happy to be here tonight to provide you with a overview of one of our larger capital projects in 2015. Still getting used to saying 2015. That is our Clyde Estates improvements. This is a snapshot of the project area. We have 59th Street to the north, Main Street to the west, 61st Street to the south, and the YMCA is to the east of this project. This project includes 3 major scopes of work. Each of these items has been included in the village's community investment program for the past several years. And as we've talked about each year in our capital planning, what we strive to do is to package all of our improvements together where at all possible in order to make the best use of our money and to minimize disruption to our residents. So in this case, we have had the need to reconstruct streets here, some drainage improvements, and sidewalks, all in the identified capital projects, and we have put them together into one capital project this year for a total of about $2.6 million. As far as the streets go, you've seen this slide a number of times. I think we just last looked at it in the capital budget for 2015. We have been working our way through a number of identified street reconstructions. Clyde Estates here is shown in the orange. It's one of 3 areas in the village where we're planning to reconstruct streets. And as we talked about for the past several years, we have our street maintenance program, which is our milling and overlay. These reconstructions are being done because they're past the point of being able to be milled and overlaid. They need to be reconstructed. The majority of streets in Clyde Estates look very similar to this patch of Clyde Avenue. You can tell by the alligator cracking that the base, the structural component of the street is no longer functioning to support the street. That's why we get so much cracking. There's a lot of edge line deterioration along the street, and the poor drainage, kind of lack of positive drainage in this neighborhood contributes to some of that edge line deterioration of the streets. So we are planning to reconstruct all the streets in this area. We're planning to do this through full depth reclamation, similar to what we did in Downers Grove Estates in 2014, where we're effectively recycling the material, augmenting it with structural elements to make it a more stronger subbase, and then overlaying it with fresh asphalt. So that's the street component of the project. Drainage has also been identified as a need in this neighborhood, and it's been identified for many years in the capital improvement program. It was initially envisioned as, I think, a project where somewhere off-site there'd be some detention and drainage structures, storm sewers would be built throughout the subdivision, which would have been a very expensive and very disruptive project for this neighborhood. We have been working with our consultant to really come up with the best fit type of a project for this neighborhood, minimizing disruption and providing the needed improvements for this neighborhood. It's kind of on the upside of a watershed, so it doesn't have a lot of water draining into it. It's a rather flat neighborhood with depressional storage problems. It really doesn't have a very positive outflow to it. So what we're looking to do is to add some storm sewer, to improve drainage and some ditch lines, and to add some stormwater management areas to help infiltrate water, to help it drain away from problem areas, and to allow for some private improvements. A lot of residents are interested in working with us on some cost share projects that they can do on their properties that will provide them a positive outflow from their properties. This is some examples, and I'll talk about this in a little bit further slides, an area we're proposing for a stormwater management area that would allow for this type of thing, where it provide a positive drainage area. We'd be able to put in some naturalized plantings. It would infiltrate water and provide a positive outflow. This slide, I apologize, it's kind of small print. This is just an excerpt from the village's sidewalk matrix. We are on the last probably 2 years of our sidewalk matrix, after many years of installing sidewalk. Clyde State's street segments are the top 6 segments that have been identified in the matrix. They ranked rather high in the matrix as far as need goes because of very close proximity. They're about a half a mile from most houses in this neighborhood to walk to O'Neill Middle School and to Fairmount Elementary School. They're about a mile from the downtown and about a half mile from the Jewel at 63rd and Main. So there's a lot of walking destinations from this neighborhood, so that they do score rather high. The sidewalks were delayed in construction in relation to the rest of the matrix in order to build it with the rest of the neighborhood improvements. So those are being planned to be constructed in Clyde Estates as well as the other projects. And this is just a snapshot of the southern part of the subdivision showing how that sidewalk design has been incorporated into the neighborhood design on one side of each street and connecting to existing sidewalks and to destinations outside of the neighborhood. I'd just like to provide a little summary of the public engagement that has gone on. This is typical of our other large capital projects, and it's also typical of our annual sidewalk program. I think what perhaps might be a lot for the neighbors to take in is it's really kind of both. It's sidewalks and neighborhood improvements all being discussed in these same 3 meetings that we typically hold. We did have our first meeting on August 13th. We had approximately 32 residents in attendance, and we did get a significant amount of public input. That meeting was conducted after we had hired our consultant because we do quite a bit of preparation work. We basically provide kind of a blank slate to the neighborhood, but we want to get data to show them that shows topography and helps to start identify plans in the neighborhood so they can look at it, identify their homes, and identify areas that they would like to have worked on in the project. So we had that meeting early in the project design, August 13th. One of the, besides drainage, one of the major concerns that came up from the neighborhood was traffic calming. The way the streets are laid out, Washington, comes off of Main Street, and it really is kind of a free flow up to 59th Street. The way the subdivision streets are laid out. And there was concern expressed about people turning right off of Main, going up to the northeast, up to 59th Street. There was also concern about people coming down Washington Street from the north. There was concern, and there was positive comments made about sidewalks in the neighborhood at that meeting as well. The second meeting we held November 19th. That is after we take all these comments, work on the project design. That's when we went back to the neighborhood to get comments about what we had showed as a design. We did receive good, strong support for the project, for the streets, the drainage, and sidewalks, and we worked with residents to address concerns they had as well. We did show them some different ideas about traffic calming, and I'll show those to you in just a second. On August 19th, when we did our notification to the entire neighborhood, there were 7 homes that were not captured. Their address was not captured when we did the initial list. Once that was pointed out, right after the meeting was held, we personally met with each of those 7 residents or talked to them on the phone, answered questions they had, and invited them to come in and review plans with us. And in some cases, we went out to their homes and met with them as well. We've had meetings with residents at their home, like I said. We've shared quite a bit of emails and phone conversations with them. And we have had follow-up with 11 residents who have expressed interest in having bioswales installed. A naturalized type of planting is installed in the ditches and swales in front of their homes. We've also had interaction with residents who want to have cost share projects done in conjunction with this project to do improvements on their public properties.
Could you just remind everyone what a cost share program or project typically is?
The cost share program is designed to benefit private property drainage. It is typically done when it is at least two properties, so it might be 2 residents combined that have rear yard drainage, side yard drainage problems. And what a lot of times they'll do is they'll extend a storm sewer or regrade a ditch or regrade a swale to drain to a positive outlet in their front yard. In many cases, we will install a storm sewer structure in the right-of-way that they'll be able to connect to, and that's what we'll be looking to work with them on projects like this.
Thank you.
As far as the traffic calming goes, this is what I was talking about with Washington Street. You can see it curves through the neighborhood, and where it intersects with these two intersections were identified as areas to look at in our design. The southern intersection, we have a before drawing on the left and an after drawing on the right, or a proposed drawing on the right. This is Washington, Clyde, and 60th Place, where Clyde and 60th Place intersect with Washington Street. What is being suggested here is a way to slow down the traffic as it comes through this neighborhood, is to convert this to more of a two T intersections. So instead of a free flow of traffic through Washington Street here, you would come up Washington Street, take a right, and then take a left. So in effect, it really slows down traffic as they come through the intersection. The sidewalks would be continuous through. They would cross at intersections just like they do at any other intersections. And the area I mentioned earlier, for a stormwater there's an area of public right-of-way that would become available for stormwater management area as well, which would be on village property and would be maintained and owned by the village. Similarly, an idea that was proposed up on the northern intersection of Washington, Webster, and 60th is to take this intersection, which has rather a large amount of right-of-way, and to install a traffic circle. This would as well reduce the free flow of traffic through this area and help to calm traffic and reduce traffic speeds. These have both been proposed. They were conceived and proposed as a result of comments and concerns that were brought up at the neighborhood meeting. Lastly, I'd just like to review with you what the schedule of the project currently is on, is that we are in the process right now of completing plans. Bidding is proposed to commence in February or March in order to get the project advertised and out to bid. Similar to the way we manage our public interaction on these projects, we typically have a meeting right before construction happens so that we can provide coordination information for residents, give them contact information for the contractor, let them know who to talk to about different issues, and give them up-to-date schedules on what's going to commence with construction. We're anticipating that construction could begin as early as April, and the project would be completed by November of 2015. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Nan. Questions from the audience now that the presentation has been made, please. Hello again, Dr. Goodman.
Hi. That was very informative. I was wondering, though, I looked on the website and I find that in the manager's report for the December 12th meeting of the council, there is a memo about this Clyde Estates Homeowners Engagement Progress Report. And it seemed that the figures were similar, if not the same, as that in the memo. Is that memo current so that we could refer to that? Yes. It's hard to take notes on presentations, and it's very helpful if we have documentation such as that report on the 12th. And if it's still current, I think that would be useful to point out that people could review this information on their computers if they go to the manager's report for the December 12th meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello again, Ms. Bennett.
Hello again, I'm back. I have a couple more points. The gal who just gave a presentation, she said that speeders were a problem. Now, I've lived in my house for 44 years, and my daytime rooms, the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, all face Clyde Drive. And yes, on occasion, not often, do I see somebody going too fast. But it's very rare, and I have never once in my 44 years seen an accident. I have never heard of anyone being hit by a car. I have seen bikers, skaters, kids on roller skates, skateboards, whatever kids love to do. No one has ever hit a child. It is a very, if there is a speeding problem on Washington Street, I think that's a police problem. I think police know how to curb speeders. Right now, the way I see it, and yes, I'm upset, I don't like the changes that are proposed. I think they're very bad. The speeders have to be addressed by the police officers. If they can't do it, then yes, go to the second step, which would be to get pedestrians off the streets and put them on sidewalks. But don't start changing the whole neighborhood. It's like taking a sledgehammer to set a thumbtack. You just don't do it. You don't need to do that. And when I saw, what's the price of this? $1.2 million? For what? What are we going to get for that money? I'm going to get a gigantic front yard, and we're going to lose a lot of trees, all right? And I want to point out something. Clyde Estates, when we were looking for a home in 1971, the realtor said, I'm going to show you what I consider one of the nicest neighborhoods in Downers Grove. And we liked it, and we bought. What I found out since is that when those streets were laid out, it was laid out by a well-known landscapist. It was Olmsted. He laid out Central Park in New York. And he was so recognized, he came into Chicago and did the 1893 World's Fair. And his work was so recognized that landscape artists or students study his work today. And when they had this beautiful site in Downers Grove, which is high on a hilltop, it's flat. There is an elevation difference between one side of Clyde to the other side of 1 inch. That's beautiful land. All right, so here's Olmsted, and he put in these curves, and not curbs, curves, all right? It's beautiful. It's beautiful 4 seasons of the year. It is still a beautiful neighborhood, and because it's beautiful, we are at the top of the tax level. I understand that tax assessments are by tiers. I haven't seen this, but I was told, and Clyde Estates, from its inception as part of Downers Grove, was at the top. All right, so I think we deserve to be treated with respect. We've got a very nice neighborhood, and I don't see using a sledgehammer, a jackhammer, or anything else to change it. The other thing, if you're going to insist on this sledgehammer, I would like a copy of the number of accidents or the people that have been killed or maimed in Clyde Estates. I have never seen it in 44 years, and I do not, as a taxpayer, want to waste this money. The other thing is water retention. To pull out, I'm going to say Olmsted Parkways. They're gorgeous. If you haven't seen them, they're worth going to look at. They have gorgeous trees on them. Most of the homes in Clyde are a half an acre or under. We have Because we were not incorporated at the time these homes were built in 1950s, everybody had to have septic tanks and sewers. And I have 2 dry wells on my property because my backyard, my yard is now 1/2 acre. So all my rainwater, stormwater is evacuated, discharged to the backyard. Not one drop of my rainwater or stormwater goes out to the street. Whatever lands in this little dip in the front yard is from street runoff. And I said, why can't Clyde Estates have curbs? Most streets in Downers Grove have curbs with drains built in. Do you know what the reason was? I mean, it's a 60-year-old community subdivision. So why wouldn't we have curbs now? The answer was, when these homes were built by contractors, they did not put them in, so even though we're paying very high taxes, we can't have them. Even though back in 1954, it wasn't really available. So I resent the use of my tax dollars. Plus, yesterday, I paid my water bill. I paid $29 for water that doesn't even reach the street. So I want to see some fairness here. We support the town, and let the town support us for once. Give us some of the goodies. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett.
Mayor, get a clarification.
Commissioner?
I just want to get a clarification. Ms. Bennett, did you say that you wished Clyde Estates had sewers and curbs?
I would like to see curbs.
Okay.
There's no problem with curbs. And I would like to see storm drains in those curbs.
Okay.
I went out and measured sidewalks in several spots in town. Some of them are, when they're not consistent. But one area, right behind Pollock's junk room, they had 5 homes, they had a super wide street, they had curbs, they had drains in the curbs, they had a block, a dead end at the end of the street. 5 houses with a great street, and we did a ditch. I think that's wrong. Thank you.
Thanks.
And just by way of further clarification, there are a lot of neighborhoods in the village that were constructed at different points in time. Obviously, we have a long and rich history, and different areas were built at different times. Different parts of what is now Downers Grove came in over different times. If you run around town, you'll find that there's a lot of neighborhoods. Some have sidewalks on both sides, full curb and gutter. Others have no sidewalks. Well, we're getting to where everyone has a sidewalk, at least on one side, but for many years, there were no sidewalks. Many parts of town had no curb and gutter. You don't have to go very far. You can go over to 4900 block of Cornell, for example, and there are many, many other streets just like it, which have no curb or gutter whatsoever. It's all ditches. That's the way it is. That's the way it was developed at the time. Curb and gutter is an expensive proposition, even when a neighborhood is given the opportunity as part of the cost share program to put in curb and gutter. I've seen instances where there's interest from the neighborhood in putting in curb and gutter, but when the cost is revealed, the interest wanes. I know of an example of that firsthand a number of years ago. Ideally, yes, curb and gutter on every single street in Downers Grove would be a better solution for a number of different things. If we had curb and gutter at every street in Downers Grove, we might actually be able to entertain Commissioner Durkin's longstanding interest in a leaf pickup program, or not a leaf pickup program, a leaf sweeping program. That's a big capital expenditure.
Can it be offered as an option to homeowners?
What's been offered in the past, and again, Ms. Bennett, I'm going to have to ask you at some point to come up to the microphone because no one at home is going to be able to hear you. And I know there was a lot of talk earlier about things being recorded, and we do record these meetings, and no one's going to hear you back there. But your question was, can it be offered as an option to the homeowners? I can't speak from an engineering standpoint, but I know in other instances, What has been offered to neighborhoods is the opportunity to participate in creating a special service area, or an SSA, whereby if all the neighbors agree to have a little bit extra fee that they pay on part of their tax levy, then that construction cost can be put in. I'm personally familiar with an example of that where it was offered to a neighborhood in Downers Grove when their sidewalk was going in, and as long as the construction was taking place, the question was, well, can we also get curb and gutter? The answer was yes, but only through the special service option. That price tag was then proposed to the neighborhood along with how it would be allocated at a neighborhood meeting, and ultimately the majority of the folks on that street did not opt to make that additional investment. But that is something that is available, and again, subject to engineering restrictions and other things that I won't speak to. That is an option that is generally available where it makes sense throughout the community.
Okay, I understand that on Cross Street, which is close to Ogden, instead of ditches, the people were given an option of having, I don't know what the word is, it's a big tile where stormwater flows through. What is that called? A culvert?
Culvert.
A culvert. They had the option of having a ditch or a culvert, and the culvert would be covered over with soil, so it would be flat with their normal front yard. And if we couldn't have curbs, I think we should be offered culverts.
I hear your request. Again, I don't know what the engineering details are or what challenges might exist, but I duly noted.
And there's one more point. I did meet with an engineer from Public Works, and he said that my section of Clyde, which is 5 houses, will have the ditch, but when you cross over Washington Street going east, there's, I don't know, maybe 12 houses, they will have the culvert. And I said, why is that? And they said it has to do with water flow, that the water flow from that section that will get culverts will empty into an existing collecting basin, but my water will flow in the opposite direction to the very same basin. And I thought, now isn't that strange? One part of the block is going to flow eastward, and the other part of that block is going to flow westward, and both empty into the same collecting basin. I think there's a lot of questions here that need a really good look at, because I'm not happy at all with what's going on. So, thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your views.
Laurel Bowen, 829 Clyde Drive. Following up with a few of the comments, yes, we've been there 60 years. The same parkway trees and the trees in the triangles, which Mrs. Newland did not mention, are being eliminated, and they are a great source of sucking up water. They're huge. They're all the originals that were put in when the houses were built, and they're still healthy trees. We did have tiles, but they've collapsed. That's what was used in our yards to move the water, the storm water. I still have not heard anything about a traffic study. You said I should wait for the presentation.
I said we might hear about one.
Might.
I guess the question is,
Well,
was one conducted, is your question?
Yes. And if they're going to propose reconstructing our entire neighborhood at a cost of a proposed $2 million, and that's, by the way, the first meeting that was held, the neighbor asked, who's paying for this? The answer that was given to her, the state. I'd like to know how that's working out, and if that was just a made-up answer, or who is paying for this, which is also another conundrum here, because we've had quite a few capital projects in Downers Grove. None of them went to referendum. And where's the money coming from? You know, we're not, rolling in the money here with the economy being what it is. So I think that there's a lot of questions. We never received any papers from these two meetings. No papers were given to us. The presentation that was made today, where's the papers that we can take with us to refer to? There's no reference material given to us for this huge thing that they had blueprints on tables How do you read a blueprint on a table? You don't even know where the point of reference is. It's really difficult with all these people standing around tables around the room. We didn't know what we were looking at. And, it's just, I just don't understand how this whole thing is being presented to us, being organized. It's just very unprofessional and disturbing. There's a lot of questions, and this is not done yet.
Thank you for being here tonight. Hello again, Ms. Butler.
Hello. I'm Connie Butler at 5925 Washington. It was really interesting talking about the ditches and the culvert. I live on the east side of Washington, and we don't have the flooding that they do with the ditches on the west side of Washington. And I believe we have culverts, what you're talking about is around things that come underneath our driveway and come underneath our yard. And we have that, and it drains all the way down to the drain at 59th in Washington. There's a sewer there. They're having difficulty with the sewer that's on the west side of Washington, and I'm not sure why, but that's where the ditch is. And that's where my neighbors, 3 homes, just flood all the time. And the copy that I have looks like the sidewalks are going to be on the west side of Washington with the ditches. Now, that seems to me that would be a wonderful opportunity to put the culvert underneath the sidewalk if you're going to do that. But, if you're going to have a ditch and then have the sidewalk, it seems like you're going to take up a whole lot of extra room from the neighbors' yards. I just wonder why you switch from one side of Washington to the other side when you're making people with buggies and people walking cross the major road, which is Washington. Anyway, I just don't understand the retention jobby there. That's my own lack of understanding. I'd just be interested in more information about that. And then one last thing, and that would be, I appreciate the opportunity for the dollars that would be involved with curbs and sewers and gutters, whatever that is. And would that take care of the drainage problem, the flooding? And if it would that then be that money, instead of the other things, go into the curbs and the gutters for drainage? Anyway, I don't know enough about it to really make intelligent questions. But it just seems to me that you don't build a sidewalk on top of a ditch or beside a ditch. And can you shuffle some of the money that would be going for these other things into really what is publicly acknowledged, that gutters and the drainage may be the best, the optimal. But again, B lives in an area where now the configuration, the traffic does not go by her house. The way that area is configured, the major traffic bypasses her house. It goes down Washington and goes right by my house. So I can appreciate B's situation, and then you wonder, well, why change what's happening there when it's not really affecting? What's happening is the speeding that's evidently going from Main Street through all the way down Washington. not coming in front of B's house, which would be Clyde. So why change what's working and really address what isn't working? So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. Other questions from the audience? Good evening. Happy New Year.
Hello, and thanks. Yeah, my name's Chris Morgan. I live at 6029 Washington. So straight across from this proposed stormwater retention area. One thing, I'll really miss it, if they cut down, there's two beautiful trees there in this triangle. You know, it's for me, it'd be a great loss if those trees are cut down. And the other thing, I'm a father of two special need kids. And I see, there's some traffic on Washington. I could see, the possible need of a sidewalk there. But I would have no problem my kids walking, the other streets. There's very little traffic. I mean, Clyde Avenue, that circle there. And, I have no concerns about my kids who are, not that well coordinated walking the other streets. There's so few cars going down those streets. But and the other issue I have is that I don't understand clearly why, with the stormwater management area that they're considering, where all the water's coming that will end up in that area. Where is it? That right now, that doesn't seem like where it floods. I don't know. I don't understand all the way to propose to get the water in that area, but to eliminate the two trees, for me, it's not worth it. But all right, thanks.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Morgan. Any questions from the audience? Otherwise, I was going to allow council to ask some questions and then give staff an opportunity not to put Mr. Sikich or anybody else on the spot, but in case there were ready answers to any of the questions that were put out there that we could responsibly address now, we could do that. If there are items that are better served for more mindful and contemplative response later, then so be it.
I think a lot of these questions we're aware of and we've heard before, and thanks to the residents for bringing those to our attention again. What I'd like to propose is we would actually meet individually with these residents to answer questions in a one-on-one format, or if they would like to meet collectively, we could also do that. These are really more a series of questions that lead to a dialogue that will help us improve the design and make changes as necessary moving forward. So
sure.
Happy to answer those questions, happy to work with them in coming weeks. And then we can provide a report out to the council as to what those issues were, what we were able to address in the revisions to the plans, and what items remain items of concerns raised by the citizens.
Understood and appreciated, and I also get the sense that some of the items are a matter of understanding what the rationale is behind certain things and why other paths were not taken, perhaps. No pun intended. And this is probably not the best format to walk through those things. So what you propose, I think, makes sense. But I'll ask if members of the council have questions or comments or concerns. Commissioner Rankin.
Well, I think that's a wonderful solution. I think it's a wonderful solution. Could you come up, Nan, and please answer a few questions? So there's a purpose of ditches, and I had the same question when there was flooding on my street and there's water in ditches, and I wondered why there's water sitting in ditches. And I know that's kind of the purpose of it. And could you explain to the audience what the purpose of a ditch is and why we have ditch programs and what that really means?
Sure. About a third of the village streets have ditches, are drained by ditches instead of curb and gutter. It's a cross-section where you have your road, in a traditional ditch section, your road is up higher, the drainage comes down into the ditches drain perpendicular to the road, drain off-site, and it helps to drain the road, and in an ideal situation, the ditch is also lower than the front yard, so the water's draining toward the front yards. The village wasn't mass graded, so like block by block, in a lot of cases, there wasn't grading done, and then the houses were built. In a lot of cases, houses were kind of filled in, so there wasn't that kind of bigger oversight done in a lot of the cases, where they looked at the house foundation and they looked at the ditches. So in a lot of streets, you don't really have well-defined ditches. And as a result, you don't really have very good drainage along the edges of the streets either, which leads to some deterioration in the streets. The ditches do two things. They provide an outlet for water, so in an ideal case, the ditches have a slope to them, just like a storm sewer would, where the water drains away through the ditch because it's sloped. Where you see where the water might sit in a ditch, a lot of times it's because there isn't that grade in the ditch. It might be flat, or it might have flat areas to it, so the water doesn't drain away because of that. A ditch also provides storage. So in a large rain event, that big cross-section area where the ditches are, the water is filling up the ditch, and that provides storage. It's like kind of a smaller version of a detention basin. And a benefit of ditches, there's a couple of benefits of ditches, is that in a rain event, you got your storm sewer, which is providing a certain amount of storage as well, but when you have an open ditch, it's providing even more storage. So it can fill up and then overspill in a really big rain event, and that's really providing more storage than you see in a typical curb and gutter with a storm sewer underneath the grade. There isn't a whole lot of storage provided in that case, but in a ditch section, you get more storage. The other thing you get in a ditch section is that it's usually a grass ditch, so it's infiltrating. So it's absorbing water, it's cleaning water, providing water quality benefits, and it's also absorbing it into the groundwater. So it's providing, in some ways, it's a little bit of a greener solution for stormwater than a typical storm sewer, because it provides water quality and it provides additional volume. So that's really the major difference.
Thank you.
Does that answer?
Yes.
I would add another benefit. Proper ditches and the drainage that Nan is describing is imperative to increasing the longevity of the streets, making sure that the water drains out of the subbase of those streets to extend the life, to make our investment go further and make the life of those streets longer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments from the council? Thank you, Nan.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have one more report tonight. We have a report from the Economic Development Corporation President, Mr. Casa, and a brief presentation of their strategic plan. Michael.
Welcome back, Mr. Casa.
Thank you. Michael Casa, President of the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation, 5159 Mokel in downtown Downers Grove. I will try to be brief, which is always a tough thing for me to promise, but I'll try. I'm here tonight to present you with an overview of our strategic plan. We presented the same overview to our board of directors. The Economic Development Corporation has been in the process of developing a 5-year strategic plan that will take us to 2019 and will guide the work of our organization. To update on the process, at the next executive committee meeting, which is the 16th of this month, we're going to present the executive summary of the plan, because it's a very long document. We want to make it readable. And then that is going to be the public document that we're then going to release right after that. It'll be sent to all the commissioners, to post it on our website, made available to the community. That report will include a preamble, which will kind of introduce the strategic plan, mission statement, objectives, the executive summary, an overview of each section of the plan, goals, and then critical success factors, which are the sort of the to-do list on how you achieve every goal. After you receive it, we'd like to have the opportunity to meet with each commissioner individually to go over the plan with you in detail. Again, it's a very long document, and then answer any questions that you might have. Don Jankowski, who's a member of our board of directors and chaired our committee, would like to offer to join us in those meetings. Once that has happened, we will then schedule presentations for other governmental bodies and civic organizations to make them aware of what our 5-year plan is. And we all then also will develop a printed piece, which is a much shorter document, which will give people who are interested to learn about the plan a piece that they can have. A few other items I wanted to mention. We've identified in the plan our high priority goals for the new year, and each year, we will identify those high priority goals for the coming year. One of the important things that our executive committee has stressed is that so much of what we do is tied to the marketplace, to the local economy, to the regional, national economy. So this plan has the opportunity to be amended and updated as we need to address market forces. And so what I'd like to do today is provide you an overview of some of the work that you'll see us doing over the next 5 years, specifically talking about the goals that we've identified. Before I do that, I want to say a special thank you to the Strategic Planning Committee that worked on this plan along with our staff. Don Jankowski, as I mentioned, is the chairman. Mark Cosenza from Inland Corporation, Mike Carina, who's formerly with DeVry, Dave Fieldman and Mike Baker of the village staff, and Scott Miller, who's our chairman of our board of directors, who's with us tonight. Scott is the managing director of Jones Lang LaSalle, one of the world's premier real estate firms. We also had input from our entire executive committee and from our board of directors. We're very blessed to have a lot of public and private sector leaders of our community on our board. And we also had a lot of input from a lot of other people that we interviewed, and also for our staff. Okay, having done that, let me read our mission statement. The mission of our organization is to enhance the economic vitality of the village of Downers Grove through the retention, expansion, and attraction of business that is conducive to improving the quality of life in Downers Grove. And then we have 6 main objectives. Promote and facilitate business attraction to Downers Grove. Promote and facilitate the retention and expansion of business in Downers Grove. Promote and facilitate development tools and programs as identified in the village's comprehensive plan. Promote and facilitate travel and entertainment spending in Downers Grove with an emphasis on overnight stays. Cultivate and sustain a labor force for existing and prospective business. And cultivate a diverse local economy. And let me just kind of walk you through, again, I'm going to try to be brief here. The first section in the plan is the commercial sector. There's a long overview that when you receive the written plan, you will see that we analyze the local marketplace, the regional marketplace, and each segment, such as grocery, is one segment in that plan. There's an analysis that was done of each of those segments. We looked at 6 main corridors for commercial development: Butterfield Road, Ogden Avenue, 75th Street, 63rd, Fairview, and Belmont. We also looked at tools and incentives. And each section of the plan talks about tools and incentives. I'll try not to be redundant, but 4 that we did identify in the plan is tools to have in our toolbox that can be used: sales tax rebate agreements, TIF districts, business improvement districts, and, when needed, acquisition of property. Let me talk about the goals in the commercial sector. First, conduct a comprehensive assessment of existing commercial properties in Downers Grove, our inventory. And then implement a strategy for Butterfield Road, implement a strategy for Ogden Avenue, implement strategies for 75th and 63rd Streets, same for the Fairview Maple Corridor, and then for Belmont Road. Downtown redevelopment, a responsibility that we share with the Downtown Management Corporation. Again, the plan contains an overview of the downtown, some of the opportunities, and some of the challenges. The goals we identified: implement a strategy for redevelopment of catalyst sites, which are identified in the comprehensive plan. Tools and incentives. Let me just mention 2 items. The first is the most common form of incentives that are used for downtown redevelopment in the United States, and that's TIF districts. As you know, our current TIF for the downtown is set to mature, set to expire in a few years, and that will give the village and the EDC an opportunity to talk about how we might use TIF funds in the future. There are other incentives that can be applied to downtowns. The problem with incentives that are sales tax driven is that typically downtown businesses don't generate a lot of sales tax per se. It's not really the reason they're down there. And so That's why TIF districts and other programs tend to be more popular for downtown redevelopment. Launch marketing initiatives in partnership with the Downtown Management Corporation. Now I'd like to shift to the light industrial sector, a very important part of our local economy, Ellsworth Business Park in particular. The plan has an overview of our business parks and of our industrial sector, and there's a lengthy section on the environmental issues in the Ellsworth Business Park. And now the goals. Top priority, resolve the Ellsworth environmental issues, and I will say that we've been making some progress in that area. Dave Fieldman and I and Village Attorney Enzo Petracca recently had a meeting with the the federal EPA, and they're now meeting with the state EPA, and hopefully we are moving toward a day not too soon, not too far down the road, where we can have those issues resolved and get that remediation completed. We want to create something called the Ellsworth Task Force, which is a committee of the EDC, which will have a beginning and an end. It won't be a permanent committee. And the idea is to bring together officials from the public and private sector, industrial brokers, industrial developers, who can make some recommendations and look at some opportunities for redevelopment at Ellsworth, because there are some other challenges that the park has that need to be identified and addressed. Again, tools and incentives that can be applied to that are very common in industrial parks. TIF districts is something that maybe we might want to consider. And another one is a special service area where the property owners and the tenants are benefiting from some joint infrastructure or other benefit, such as shared parking, that they would each contribute to. Conduct a comprehensive assessment of the park, its challenges, its opportunities, and then pursue redevelopment of catalyst sites. There are catalyst sites at the Ellsworth Business Park that are identified in your comprehensive plan, and for all the catalyst sites in our strategic plan and all the sectors, they are prioritized. And then launch marketing initiatives. We'd like to get some of these challenges behind us, some of these opportunities in front of us, so that we can go out and start marketing Downers Grove, specifically Ellsworth, as a location for light industrial office, and other tenants. The office sector. One of the things our community is known for quite a bit in the regional economy. We are one of the premier locations for Class A office projects, headquarters projects, and it's the one sector in our community where there's actually some undeveloped land for future development. The plan has an overview of that sector, and then we go into the goals. Pursue opportunities to attract office tenants. We're happy to report that we had a lot of headquarters projects that came in 2014, so our occupancy rate at our Class A and Class B office buildings has risen substantially, but there's still some space available. We want to get those filled before we can start focusing on future opportunities for new development. Again, tools and incentives. Hasn't been needed as much in terms of office tenants. I want to thank the council for your support for the headquarters permit fee reductions. We've done that in 2 cases this year. Those are few and far between, but what they do is they do allow us to indicate to the site consultant or to the broker that there's an opportunity to receive a small incentive if they should apply and qualify for it. So it's almost part of our marketing to be able to have that. And then pursue opportunities for development of Class A office buildings. It's a very difficult challenge and a very long-term challenge, but we do have land available, and it's something we should pursue. Again, it's more of a long-term goal. And then we'll continue our marketing in this area, and hopefully one day make the shift from the tenant side to the development side. Business retention and expansion is the next section of the report. And again, there's an overview that talks about the existing business community in Downers Grove, our major employment areas, and very happy to say that it is rare when a business closes its doors and moves to another town in Downers Grove. But nevertheless, it's an important area, and we need to pay attention to our existing employers as much as attracting new employers. And so the goals for that area, create a database of all non-home-based businesses. Something we don't currently have, but it is a project that we're going to undertake this year, so that every non-home-based business in Downers Grove, we will have information on them in our office. Conduct a business retention calling program. Very traditional thing for EDCs, where you go out and you meet companies, you prioritize them, you can't meet all of them right away. You prioritize the firms that you want to meet with, and you go out and you meet with them. And that is where you try to find opportunities for expansion, but also look for those times where maybe there's an issue or a problem that might cause that firm to consider leaving town. So again, it's important to pay attention to that. What most economic development corporations are known for is marketing. It's sort of the bread and butter, economic development 101. Again, we provide an overview on our marketing efforts. And by project management, what I'm referring to is that assistance we provide to the client, from the first phone call, the first meeting, all the way to the ribbon cutting. And that's, again, we call that project management, and it's, again, one of the most important things that we do. So the goals we've set up, we've established, implement marketing programs to promote Downers Grove as a location for new business. Provide comprehensive assistance and facilitation. Again, something that's pretty typical for our EDCs. Maintain updated information on available sites. One of the most important things that we do is when every day of the week, companies, brokers, developers call us and want site information. What's available? What buildings are available for lease or purchase? What land is available? And we use a national program called CoStar. We subscribe to it. There's some licensing requirements. Before we can provide information on an available site, we have to notify the representative of that site that we're doing that. But it's something that we do. It's a service we provide, and it allows people to identify all the opportunities in a town in a one-stop shop. Make recommendations on workforce development issues. We've talked about this quite a bit. Workforce development is becoming more and more of an important economic development priority, especially making sure that your community is attractive for millennials to work and to live. It is by far the most sought-after demographic group, and it's something employers ask about all the time. Can we attract millennials as part of our workforce if we locate in your community? Another important area is the Downers Grove Visitors Bureau. Again, the plan provides an overview not only of what we have in Downers Grove in terms of amenities and attractions, facilities for visitors, but also it talks about the economic impact that tourism visitors have in our community, which is quite extensive. And the goals that we've set up: promote hotels in Downers Grove as a destination for overnight stays and meetings. Design marketing campaigns to promote tourism. Includes a branding strategy, shifting our advertising to more digital platforms, social media, and then targeted trade shows. Launch business development programs. A new responsibility that we're now taking on is, in addition to marketing Downers Grove as a location, as a destination for visitors, we're now helping develop that business. We hired a new employee, and that's a major part of her job, is to work directly with the hotels on that. That includes developing a database of area companies, which we can use to call on. A program known as CVent, which is a marketing package that is pretty commonly used by CVBs around the country. Reader boards, which will tell us about existing meetings and events that are being held at other hotels in the region, and how we can have an opportunity to go after them, maybe to get them to come to Downers Grove. And then work with meeting planners and event managers, again, to encourage them to move those events and meetings to one of our facilities. Promote visitor destinations in Downers Grove. Working closely with the Downtown Management Corporation, because our downtown is definitely an attraction for visitors. We're going to launch a program called Dine in DG, and that's to get people who work here, who live here, and who visit here, especially those who stay in our hotels, to also spend their dining dollars here in our community. And then interconnectivity, which is trying to link people who are staying in Downers Grove, one of our hotels, with the restaurants, with the shops, so that, again, we get the opportunity to keep more of those dollars in our community, and that will help our local businesses, especially those in the downtown. And develop partnerships with tourism industry organizations at the national, state, regional, and county level. Let me shift to finance and administration. I hope I'm not going too fast here, but I wanted to get through this. This, like any other organization, we have internal responsibilities and needs. There's an overview that's provided of how we govern our organization and how our organization is funded, and some of the goals that we've established there. Maintain a professional and attractive office. Hopefully, if you've been to our office in downtown, you'll think that we're doing that. Manage the corporate and legal affairs of the organization, everything from an annual financial review to all those things you need to do to make sure that your organization is being run the proper way. Manage the organization in a fiscally responsible manner. We try very hard to spend every dollar wisely and to save money whenever possible. And then a very important priority for us this year is to secure and sustain financial support through the Partnership for Prosperity campaign, which will reduce the percentage of the overall DG EDC budget that is provided by the village. And we're off to a good start this year. We now have, I wanted to report this, 34 investors that are either in or have made commitments to join in this new budget year, which is over $32,000 in direct cash funding. In addition to that, we've got 6 investors who are providing us with in-kind support, which means rather than them giving us a check, they're actually giving us some products and services that we'd have to buy anyway at no cost. And probably the best example is the new digital whiteboard that we have in our office, which retails for $6,000, and we got it for free with our newest investor, Sharp Business Systems. So it's an opportunity for us to go out and ask companies and other organizations to invest in the EDC, either by making writing a check, which is the preferred way, but also in some cases provide a service or a product that we'd have to purchase anyway at no cost. We have 147 companies on our target list, and we are talking to them every day of the week, setting up meetings. We share this thing called a prospectus with them, which talks about the opportunities, the benefits of becoming an investor in the EDC. And again, one of the newest things we have is when you walk into our office, you will see a screen in the lobby in the reception area which has the logos of all of our investors. And hopefully people see that and they want to know, how do I get my company logo on there as well? But bringing a company in as an investor is only half the battle. We have to ensure, it's our last goal in this section, we have to ensure that the EDC investors value their annual investment so that they will renew. And even though EDCs, including our organization, tend to have high renewal rates, it's important to do this. And some of the ways we're going to do that is by recognizing their company or organization as an investor, keeping them informed in economic development issues and opportunities through an electronic newsletter. As you know, we hold some events periodically, invite them to those, and then invite our investors to serve on committees and perhaps even on our board of directors. Again, making them feel they have a sense of ownership in the organization. That adding value to that will hopefully sustain their investment year after year. And of course, whenever we recognize our investors, whether they're at the platinum, gold, silver, or bronze level, at the top will be our founding investor, which of course is the Village of Downers Grove, and we very much appreciate your tremendous support you've given our organization. 2014 was a very good year for economic development. I know Manager Fieldman shared with you some of the wins. We think 2015 will be even better. I want to thank you very much. I look forward to scheduling those meetings with each commissioner where we can go through the plan in detail, answer any questions you might have, and then we look forward to beginning the implementation process, which we're looking forward to. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Casa, and appreciate all the work that went into this and the lengthy process that led up to it, this being the first time that the organization has gone through this exercise. It's a good one. It's a learning process, and it's definitely a step in the right direction. Certainly, it took us a while to update our comprehensive plan, so hopefully you'll be in a much better interval than the village has in the past. I think we're all more committed to not only focusing on them more frequently, but making sure that they're both current and forward-looking at the same time.
Well, I'm being paid to do this work, but we were fortunate to have so many people, both on the strategic planning committee, but also in our organization, that provide their time. In some cases, they also are investors. And it's people like Scott Miller, who's our board chairman, and many others who give up their time to help our organization, to help our local economy. And without their support, without the support of your tremendous staff, and without the support of the council, none of this would be possible. I mean, I get to stand up here and, and sometimes get a pat on the back, which is nice, but we have a great team at Downers Grove on economic development, and I'm just very lucky to have that tremendous support structure, so thank you.
And fair point, because we also want to thank Chairman Miller, who's here tonight, all his work on this project and leadership of the Economic Development Corporation. And we'll thank in absentia Mr. Jankowski for having committed all that time to meeting with each and every one of us during his different meetings. Fortunately for him, in his retirement, he can do it, but still, it's a big commitment, his own personal time. Questions or comments from the audience with respect to the first ever Economic Development Corporation strategic plan? Questions from the council, Commissioner Newstead?
Not so much a question, but a comment. I agree that, as the first one, it's always harder to get those, even the mission statement, every word is very important. But as I was listening to the end of your presentation, I checked out your new website too, that I haven't been on since it's been new, and it's really kind of highlights the new EDC and shows a lot of great qualities and characteristics about our community through the EDC perspective and lens. So this, in conjunction with the tools and opportunities that you're going to be putting out in 2015 and beyond, are going to make for great additions to our community. So thank you for all your hard work, and the Strategic Plan Committee and everybody that's put work into this. It really shows the commitment to our community. Thank you.
When I'm working a trade show, or I'm talking to someone I've never spoken to before, a broker or a developer, I always ask them, what have you heard about Downers Grove? And you'd be really happy to hear the kind of comments that we get back. Before a company like Vequity makes an investment in a community, they check us out. They talk to their colleagues, they talk to other developers, they talk to brokers, they talk to tenants. Tell us about, we know Michael Cass is going to tell us what a great town it is. What have you heard? And the work that this village has done at the council level, at the staff level, the community's done, has made my job easier, because I'm not out there telling them, well, you heard wrong. I'm out there telling them you heard right. And that makes things a lot easier. So thank you, Jeff, for that.
Commissioner Durkin?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just out of point of order for the audience and for those that may be watching or listening at a future date, if one is interested in reviewing this worthwhile project that was taking place, where can they find it at? Is this going to be at the library in hard print?
Yeah, after the next exec meeting, when the executive summary is reviewed, we're going to basically do a press release, issue the report, put it on our website.
Okay.
It'll be available to anybody in the community that wants to see it. And then we're going to do a nice printed version with photos that'll be a little bit more compact. But yes, anyone who would like a copy will get one.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
It'll be something for all those businesses to read while they're in the waiting room, waiting to see Michael for their investment down there.
Their nice office.
It's for the cold calling, the old-fashioned knocking on the door, which tomorrow is an excellent day for a cold call. Because you're gonna have everyone accept your visit.
Yeah, the key word is cold, right?
Yeah, definitely, in more ways, but thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Rankin?
I would just like to congratulate you. This is just wonderful, and the website is very nice. I, like Commissioner Newstead, hadn't seen that yet. That's very impressive. It's a huge upgrade. I like all the links and all the information, so I look forward to the individual meeting to hear more information, but that's great. Congratulations on your hard work.
Other questions from the council? Commissioner Barnett?
Mayor, just a reflection, we'll get to all read this as well, I assume. And this is not directed certainly towards EDC, Michael, or Scott, or any of your team. But I'm reminded, as I was looking back through some minutes here, back in November of 2013, Commissioner Olson and I were, over a series of a couple of weeks, trying to get some council meetings together. And they were EDC related, and they never happened. At the time, I wanted them to happen then. Was suggested, based on our minutes and my recollection too, they'd happen sometime in the following February. Of course, that didn't happen either. And one of the comments that I'd made at the time, and it's not the be-all, end-all, and like anything, plans are constantly evolving and hopefully growing. But I'd noted at the time that if we waited that long to talk about some of these issues, and they were eminent domain, they were TIFs, they were BIDs, they were condemnation, that if the council, who hadn't really weighed in on any of that, didn't give some input, that we would be sort of missing the boat. And I suspect, based on what we saw here about incentives and tools, that some of those things didn't get commented on or make the plan. Now, maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, but it's disappointing to me that we never really had those meetings. We kind of said we would. I mean, I certainly, myself, and I think David, I'm not going to speak for him at the moment, but it certainly was the feeling when we left those meetings in November that while we wished they were happening then, they would happen shortly. And now we're 15 months later, and the report's done. So it's awesome that there is a report. I look forward to reading the whole thing and continuing to have the village and EDC grow together, because obviously there's a ton of good work being done. But we've got a job up here that we need to be diligent about too, and I think we missed the boat there. So disappointed by that, and I hope that after this thing is sort of public and released, that we'll make it a policy or a process or a normal course of action for this body to have some more non-site specific, non-proposal specific conversations about what we do and don't want to emphasize and keep in our toolbox, because I'm not sure that, well, I know we haven't had them in 6 years, and so therefore I'm not certain that there's a lot of consensus on some of those issues.
If I could make just one comment. I know as people read the report, there's going to be things, well, this wasn't covered or maybe wasn't prioritized as much. One of the nice things we're going to stress in the preamble of this document is we want this thing to be able to be updated, amended, and the main reason for that are not only that there are new opportunities that come up, or maybe there are things we didn't emphasize as much as we should, but more importantly, those market-driven forces will cause things in this plan to have to change, and that's something we simply have to be able to do that. So the opportunity will be there, again, to amend, to update. We're going to identify the high priority goals each and every year, because again, things change, and opportunities arise, or challenges, frankly, arise that maybe we didn't count on. So I do make that pledge that we will look for those needs to be able to amend and update the plan, certainly with village input.
And just to pick up on that, and I appreciate that, and I'm also cognizant, and I remember very distinctly Commissioner Barnett's request. I don't know if it was universally shared, and things have changed over time. I'm reminded of the OASIS program, where we tried mightily on numerous occasions to design a policy that would fit situations, and time after time something would come before us, and notwithstanding all the careful design and exercise of foresight, what came before us, well, that's not what I meant. I meant something else. So it's difficult. I was persuaded by the need to be nimble and quick and not cast in stone the way we're going to approach anything in a formulaic way. Sure, views on policies are important, and I think identifying what tools are available, but to almost formulaically say that we will apply X tool in Y situation, I don't think I've never been convinced is something that, well, certainly can be discussed and a viewpoint should be had. I'm not quite sure it's something that should or could properly be reduced to that kind of a formula. There was also the fact that the process, and with all due respect to our company and our guests here tonight, the process took a little longer than anticipated. I think back then we expected to be having this meeting in February, not in January of the following year. So I just want to caution that while I think we can discuss those things and should discuss those things, sort of write down a formulaic list of if X, then Y. At least in my experience, it does not necessarily lend itself to the dynamic environment and the economy and changes and opportunities that present themselves. And I think we saw that kind of in a microcosm with the OASIS program.
Yeah,
And we ultimately decided to just get rid of the OASIS program altogether and instead utilize the tools that were available in a very fluid, dynamic way as opportunities present themselves, given what the current circumstances were. In some respects, I view this as almost a broader, macro version of that. And I agree with you, Commissioner. I think certain things should be made clear that we have certain tools available. I'm glad to see those in the strategic plan. Obviously, this is the EDC strategic plan, it's not the village's strategic plan, but I agree with you 100%. We need to be working in concert together, because if we're not, then we're not going to be doing either one of us any favors. But ultimately, the use of, and the decision to use these tools and in what situation is going to be ours. And I know that the property acquisition, I know it's been politely termed property acquisition, but when it comes to there's two ways to do that when it comes to a government body. One is to buy it, and the other one is to utilize eminent domain. That's pretty much the tools we have available to us. So I'm continuing to embrace and welcome the opportunity to have the conversation, but my thinking actually kind of evolved since November of 2013. And then there was the OASIS exercise that I think taught us some lessons, that perhaps maybe coming up with a policy per se is not the way to be most dynamic and nimble. But I'm open to being persuaded otherwise.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because you have yet to hear me suggest we need to have a policy on those issues. What I said then, and will repeat now, it's not that we have a policy, Mayor, it's that we have a public discussion amongst ourselves so that we're all clear with each other about what things we see as available tools and what things are not, because I think that probably some of us have opinions on those issues, and they're not necessarily specific to a certain event. It's not a matter of formulating a policy. You wouldn't want to, even if you thought you could effectively.
I think that's right.
And so I guess the good news is, but for actually having the meeting, you are in agreement.
Right, well, and again, I also didn't want to limit it to a meeting per se. I think that, again, we've had fluid conversations, a number of different examples, real-world scenarios have been brought before this council. I think a number of different comments have been made. I haven't seen anybody up here in the last 2 years that's been shy about expressing their views on what are appropriate tools or not. I'll take Commissioner Olson as an example. He's hardly been a shrinking violet in terms of his views on what are appropriate tools. I don't know if we're going to reach a here's what's in and here's what's out, particularly when you have not only the dynamic changing environment in the economy, opportunities and whatnot, but let's face it, the council ebbs and flows too. But I'm happy to have the conversation, but I guess what I would quibble with is that we missed a boat in that metaphor. I think that we've had an open, evolving conversation on a number of these issues in different contexts. And in many respects, we do have to deal with things as they arise based on the current environment, resources, and opportunities. As I said, I'm still open to being convinced otherwise.
One of the things we hear periodically, I apologize, Michael, for the rabbit trail, because it really doesn't pertain to your report, which is well done.
No, this is part of the input. This will cut down on the meetings by at least half.
One of the things we do hear about periodically from the general public is a couple things. One is a lack of general understanding of some of the tools that are used, and the second is that it appears often that when situations, particularly the redevelopment agreement or incentive agreements, come to the council, they seem to have already been completed deals. So what I'm attempting to do, and will continue to attempt to do, is take some opportunity for us publicly to talk, to sort of further establish, whether it's attended to or not, to further establish that we give direction to those working on our behalf in economic development, the direction to pursue all these things, so that when they come up, it should be less of a surprise that there are such agreements, because we collectively have said, yeah, try and make that stuff work. When that happens on a one-off basis, I think there's less opportunity for us to demonstrate that fluid nature and flexible nature that we have is in fact sort of in itself our policy, as opposed to looking like a one-off situation to try and attend to that deal. So I don't know whether it would be effective, Mayor, in the general public understanding that I'm trying to achieve, but I still believe it's a worthy exercise and hope we will get together off agenda to talk about it.
Sure. Well, let me propose a modified version of that, because I was listening to you, which I always do very carefully, thought of something, and that is, we are going to have, once the individual meetings take place, maybe I misunderstood, will there be a further opportunity for discussion in this context?
Yeah, well, we'd like to sit down with each commissioner, go through
Sure.
the plan and answer any question you have in detail, because it's.
But then afterwards, will there be another opportunity like this? Where I'm going is, if there's another opportunity after all the meetings, that, to your point, Bob, I think that the education understanding factor from the general public, I agree with you 100%. Folks understood more what the tools were, what their purpose was, in what instances they're ordinarily utilized. Like, for example, you're right, we do have the sales tax rebate conversation seemingly every time one comes before us. I was surprised that we didn't have, it wasn't a sales tax rebate, but we did have a TIP discussion earlier tonight, and there weren't questions about that. I was surprised there weren't. And maybe what we even do is take historic examples of where those tools have been used, how they were used, and hopefully successfully, and those would serve as good illustrations.
True.
I agree with you 100%. I think that sort of public education exercise as to what tools we use, how they work, and when they would be appropriate. Maybe even at the tail end of this, after we've had our meetings, maybe we can just do that.
One quick comment, if I could, Mayor.
Sure.
3 things will happen at the end of each year during this 5-year process. 1, we will analyze, assess, did we achieve the goals, the high priority goals that were set for that year? Secondly, what will the high priority goals be for the year ahead? So we'll be doing this in December for 2016, this coming December. And third, what needs to be updated? What needs to be amended on the plan? So on an annual basis, we'll do an assessment, we'll set the goals, and we'll look for opportunities where needed for updates and amendments. The process leading up to that, again, is a fluid one. This report has a lot of different sections in it, and issues, opportunities will come up. And again, if this plan were etched in stone, I wouldn't have recommended we do it for 5 years. We looked at a lot of strategic planning models from around the country. The ones that were interested, that really were of interest to me, were the ones that were done in '06 and '07. Because for those organizations that developed a 5-year strategic plan in '06 or '07, the world changed the next year. And so many of them just had to toss it out and start over again. So it is important, not only because of the market forces, the economy, to be able to be nimble, but also priorities change from the village. Sure. And so I want to let everyone know we're going to have that opportunity on an annual basis. Do an assessment, look at our priorities, and make changes where appropriate.
Very good. Other comments?
Yeah, I do.
Sure.
You know, one of the things that your predecessor had done on a regular basis was quarterly meetings. He'd come before us, he'd share all kinds of information. Sometimes it was useful, sometimes it was just, we succeeded there, or we didn't. Are those part of the plan going forward? I know you said there's 3 steps on what you're looking to do and accomplish with the plan, with updates and accomplishments. But are you going to be coming to us in similar fashion under your style, though?
Yes, in the section dealing with finance administration, where it talks about keeping our investors informed, you're obviously the #1 investor. We want to do an annual presentation to all the governmental bodies. We want to do at least an annual visit to our investors to fill them in on what's happening. We'll use an electronic newsletter to keep everybody informed. But for the village in particular, there should not only be an annual report, if you will, but also other periodic ones. And that is something that's in the report, something that we need to do. It's very important. It gives you the chance to ask questions, but also a chance for us in a body like this to kind of update what's happened in the last few months. So yes, Commissioner Durkin, we will do that for sure.
So we can expect a year-end review update?
Yeah, perhaps early part of each year, kind of look at the year that just passed and a year ahead.
Okay.
That's correct.
And then you'll work with the manager's office to get that on the agenda for hopefully the next couple months?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Good question.
And maybe as part of that, or even sooner, we can schedule the educational Economic Tools 101.
Michael, if you're ready to do that, we'd be happy to come in.
And I think literally taking examples of, real-world examples of, because I can think of almost one of every tool that was put up there. over the last 10 years. We can pick examples and sort of walk through what they are, how they work, and generally where they make sense. So that way we're talking about the general attributes of these tools and not any specific situation, because obviously the circumstances would dictate.
Sure.
But
If I could, over the next couple of months, we want to go out and sort of go on the road with this plan. We're going to go and appear before all the governmental bodies, civic organizations. If you could indulge us that couple of months to be able to do that, to get input from frankly the whole community, then having those meetings, I think would be very helpful. I certainly would look forward to them. But I do want to give the chance for, like, go before the Rotary Club and the Downtown Management Board and give them a chance to chime in. We're scheduling a meeting with all the hotels to share with them the Visitors Bureau portion of the plan. I think to share this with the stakeholders is important for us to do.
Understood. And I'll share in Commissioner Barnett's apologies. We are wrapping you up in a larger.
Oh, no, larger, no problem.
enchilada here.
No problem.
Other questions from the council? Terrific. Thank you very much, both of you, for being here tonight.
Thank you. Again, thanks for your tremendous support of our organization. It's very much appreciated.
And one last quick item. Earlier today, we were able to perform a successful water rescue near 71st and Dexter, where a young man had fallen through some ice. We did put a top story up there. I want to take a minute to call everybody's attention to that great emergency response by not only our team, but our partners over at the Lyle Woodridge Fire Protection District. Our police, our fire, our neighboring fire departments that we depend on are very well trained in these issues. So if you get a minute, please take a moment to read that top story and say thank you to not only our police, but our fire, every other emergency and first responder in our community and others. Great response there. Just a quick acknowledgement of that. That is my report, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, that's terrific, especially in such challenging circumstances. My goodness.
That was actually on the 6 o'clock news this evening.
I'm still stuck in the Metro train. Thank you. It brings us to item 11, Attorney's Report. Happy New Year, Ms. Petrarca.
Happy New Year, Mayor. 2 items to present this evening. The first is an ordinance approving a redevelopment agreement with Vequity LLC and an ordinance authorizing a special use to permit a personal vehicle repair and maintenance facility at 2300 Wisconsin Avenue. That is all. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. Brings us to item 12. Council member, new business. Any members of the village council have any items of new business that they would like to bring before the rest of the council at this point in time?
Mayor, could I ask a question of the attorney? Sorry to go back to that report. I know the gentleman in the audience suggested that they had filed petitions for advisory referendum, and the attorney sent us a note to that effect yesterday. I know there was some concern when advisory referendum was proposed by myself at this council about how council and the village could interact and provide information. Perhaps the attorney could provide some information at a future time, maybe our next meeting.
It's already been requested.
Okay. About that?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other new business any members of the council wish to bring up?
I had something, Mayor.
Oh, go ahead. I wasn't sure whether you were.
Yeah, well, it got sideways because we sort of got into it at the very beginning of the meeting. The subject you and Gordon were on, Enza, could you make a point? There are 2 emails that you and I had exchanged, actually just that I sent to you. One from, I think, my recollection is October 6th, and one from December 29th. Could you make a point of forwarding those to all my colleagues as at least my starting thoughts on the subject matter on the 20th, both the Historic District Preservation Ordinance as well as zoning changes, just my reactions to what we went through and some of the things I think we ought to be touching on. I thought maybe I'd follow up, but it was kind of weird the way that went at the beginning of the meeting, so.
I think we'd all benefit from seeing those things. Last call, items of new business. Very good. Then with that, we'll go to item 13, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved. Second.
And before I ask for roll call, just 2 quick things. Number 1, if folks hadn't already gotten notice, we got alert that District 99 schools are going to be closed tomorrow. And I was going to say, I'm sure 58 is too. I just get the 91 ones first because I have kids there. I think they're probably all closed tomorrow. So with that, roll call, please.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. We are adjourned. Good night, stay safe, and stay warm.